Hey folks, welcome back to the Pulse. We're back again. This only lasted 2 hours, the oral arguments in the courthouse. We've got the guys back, the handsome guys back to share with us what happened. I'm super excited. Please share this out. Please let everybody know. This is like an hour earlier than I thought it would be. Folks, welcome back. They look like Secret Service agents. Danny the singer and Axis. What's up, guys?
Hey. Sorry, there was a helicopter just went over super loud. But
Well, we got people pouring. We had 1,660 people last stream, and they're pouring in. It's crazy how many people are interested. Tell us what went down.
all right, first of all, before we do that, let me just kind of show you the lay of the land. We're outside. We have our phones back, obviously. But here's the courthouse, and you'll see there's a bunch of people lined up just out there just talking away. And then across the street here at this park, there's a bunch of folks over there just hanging out, kind of the after party, so to speak. Everybody's kind of chit-chatting and talking about. Of course, I was taking notes during the conference, but Access, doesn't need to take notes. It's just it's all locked in.
Look, this was my first time ever sitting in on a hearing of this nature, and I basically walked away with like the four major bullet points of the defense.
Okay.
The first bullet point was on the basis of jurisdiction, and I felt like we had overwhelming support and evidence that supported that. We pretty much won on that front, that this is out of the SEC's jurisdiction. And, obviously you can't sue decentralized software. I remember, I paraphrase, I'm pretty sure that they even said that the opposition actually said that in some way that, look, they couldn't really pinpoint where the transactions were on where the blockchain existed. So that was like one fundamental thing that occurred. And then, just the very basis of where Richard Hart's like located.
Well, what add to what you just said there. So one of the things that was interesting was that the judge was the one that was really forcing that issue. She says, but where is that? They said, well, the transaction took place on the blockchain. She says, where's the blockchain? And they're like, well, they're.
Oh, that's
so
good.
It's funny. She was pushing them back on there, and I would just say also she seemed very, very pointed with the SEC. Like you get that sense, right?
Yeah.
The sense that I had from her was she didn't want to put up with their crap because it just seemed like there was a lot of this that was too vague, and then they were adding points that weren't in their brief and adding things as they were going. But I'm going to turn it over to Access to kind of give a little bit more.
They were trying to evolve. So the biggest problem here was that they're operating on a very bad foundation because the complaint was so poorly written, and ultimately the issue that I see here is that they have to keep trying to evolve their argument in the discovery process, and that's really going to not work out well for them. So the second major point that was discussed was on the basis of the fraud. And, their fraud accusations really boiled down to one major point for me, which was that the defense basically said, look, Richard Hart said specifically, this is a sacrifice. Your coins are gone forever. There's to be no expectations of profit from the work of others. And you're to expect no financial gain from this sacrifice. And you could tell that the judge was really struggling and wrestling with the idea that people would give away their money for no cause. And so the problem with if you pursue it on that fraud on that level, you're basically saying, look, if Richard Hart is supposed to use those funds for a purpose, which he already said there is no expectations, if you assume that he was supposed to use those funds for the development of the Pulse Chain blockchain, you're also having to make the assumption that people don't have the right to spend their money the way they want.
Yeah.
Because there was no expectation fundamentally. So that whole entire argument broke down right in front of everybody.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. And then on the basis of chronology, like the way the complaint was written, there was like multiple errors in the chronology and the order of the way they wanted to try to argue their points. Without specifics, there was just a few points, like many times in the complaint, things didn't line up chronologically. Like they had conflated timeframes and transaction logs. And that kind of really made that part of the argument crumble as well. Trying to think of some other parts. Is there any questions that you have?
Yeah. So let me ask you this: what was your impression of the preparedness and the presentation quality of Richard's lawyers versus the SEC?
Yep, superb. And you could tell that Richard's defense was very well prepared, tight knit, had the way that their lead articulates the argument of the defense is like on another level. Like I haven't like the way that it, that guy adjusted the syntax of my mind. I know I'm really grasping for depth here, but like it really changed the way that I perceived how you could make an argument in a legal sense like that. They're so good at elevating the conversation to not taking it outside of the context of the way that the complaint was written, because all you have to do is beat them on their complaint. You don't have to go beyond that.
Yeah.
And so he just continually was able to do that. I think the jurisdiction element was probably the strongest defeat that the SEC suffered. The SEC really seemed really ill prepared in a lot of ways. Like it almost seemed like they were like the B class of guys that should be kind of going out and attacking us on this matter. People that just don't really fundamentally understand decentralized technology, and they were working with a really poor foundation, and that just will keep coming up in my mind is that they're going to have to do extra work to try to make that to substantiate the claims inside of the documentation. And so that I think right there is probably enough of a reason why I think essentially they won't be able to take this too much deeper, maybe a few more levels deeper, but like eventually they're going to have to probably try again, right? This whole entire complaint's going to get thrown out and they'll have to try again. And I don't know what that looks like then, if how many times you can go after a guy for the same kind of a suit, but I would assume you could go after him at least twice, but the third time, yeah, I'm not so sure.
How would you characterize the judge? You mentioned that she was sharp and was aware and asked pointed questions. Did you sense that she was really aware of DeFi? What was that? Characterize that for us.
She was aware of other case law in cryptocurrency. You could tell that. I think that, again, I'll use the word syntax. I think that the way this was done in a decentralized nature is really perplexing and, in her words, puzzling how it's possible for there to be no intermediaries. Now, that word intermediaries wasn't necessarily used, but it was implied. And so I think, with further levels of discovery, she'll be able to come to the conclusion that, everything is above board here. But you could definitely tell that she was well studied on previous case law, and so the Howey test came up a couple times in there, but the defense chose not to go deep into that. And even I say that he said at one point, if we need to get into that level of detail, we'll go dust off the books and we'll do that later on. So
okay. Wow. So let me ask this question. The whole issue of people saying, hey, he did an ICO, it wasn't registered, even though he said it was, a lot of people's argument is, this is a clever way to do an ICO. What do you say to that? What was that brought up at all? Is that issue?
Well, they kept calling it an offering. Yeah, okay. They kept calling it so the SEC was calling it an offering. The defense said used the word offering, but didn't imply that was what their understanding of what occurred happened. So ICO was never mentioned. Offering was the word that was used throughout it, but the defense never really landed on that term for face value, if you know what I'm saying. And so they only said it because that's the way the complaint wrote it. And so it actually helps the defense by using that word, because it ends up strengthening the defense's argument because it wasn't an offering.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned jurisdiction being the top subject. You thought that was where they had the best argument. If you had to kind of call balls and strikes here, do you think that this gets thrown out based on this? What's your thought and prediction?
Oh man, does it get thrown out on the basis of jurisdiction? Look, the SEC lost that portion outright, and but I don't know if that's enough to throw it out completely, because there's still the fraud claim, which again I think there's an angle there, and I'm not a legal professional, but I think there's an angle there where with what I said before, and I'll reiterate. If she argues that the funds that was sacrificed were sacrificed with expectations in the minds of the investors, and that what money was supposed to be used for blockchain development, even though the transactions and the statements don't line up with the timeline, which was part of the defense, it's really unlikely that it's really unlikely that you're going to make a good case where you're taking away people's right to transact on the basis of this was all about the freedom of speech and freedom of movement. So it's like inside of in the language, it's basically blanket statement. Look, you're in one breath, you guys are trying to take away people's right to transact. It's an amazing defense. It's an amazing thing. What it really felt like we were a part of something really special here, guys. Like I feel like Richard Hart did something that changed the syntax of how the legal system is going to have to grapple with this new technology. That was my takeaway. And there was one moment in there where a chill ran up my spine, and I just felt like, yep, that was it. And it's about halfway through. The hearing lasted a couple hours, so it was an incredible experience. That I got put in the overflow room, believe it or not, and there was about 16 people in there. So I think we totaled around 75 to 80 people showed up. So pretty good showing considering they moved it a couple weeks.
So was the topic of Richard saying this is for, no expectations, this is the freedom of speech and the freedom of movement? Were those terms brought up in this oral argument?
Yes.
Okay. How are those characterized by the defense?
They didn't. They just mentioned that those were the words that were used, and then that spoke for itself. That's the weight of the power of those words. That there were to be no expectations of profit from the work of others. Your coins are gone, and you are sacrificing your coins, and you're not getting them back.
Yeah.
On the basis of a political statement for the freedom of speech and the freedom of movement. So it was like the energy in the room was just like the words spoke for themselves. It was very very eerie, like very substantiating. Like so in terms of like how the defense elaborated on those points, they didn't have to because they stood for themselves.
Yeah. Wow. Now, you talked about chronology, and I think that's related to the expenses that were used to buy certain things and part of the fraud piece of this. One of the jokes that one of the lawyers said, previously was that Richard Hart didn't have a time machine. Was any of that stuff brought up as far as killing that whole fraud case based on the receipts of purchase?
Well, yeah, they kept making arguments that money was that he was using that money for his own self gain. But those claims were not considering that there was no expectations of what those funds were to be used for in the first place.
Wow. You know what is amazing? And of course, I want you to kind of speak about this. It's almost like you talked about the chill running up your spine. It's like you knew Richard Hart was a genius, but you didn't realize that he had a crystal ball and he saw the future. It almost feels like he knew exactly what he was doing. Of course, I believe that. What do you say now that you've heard this?
Well, I'm pretty confident that we're in a very good place. There was much, the judge was much more eager to kind of, I would say, I don't know, poke at the SEC, but she wasn't afraid to ask questions to the defense either. But I just felt like the defense always offered up really clear, really above bar answers that only address the complaint. Because again, if you can beat them on the basis of their complaints, then you break down their arguments. They don't have a case. So I just feel like it just really feels like they don't have a case.
Did you sense that they felt like they were outmatched or were defeated in any way?
Oh, 100%. That's not my bias. It's just that these guys that are defending Richard are clearly like top tier, AAA title, best in the game. You can, like I said before, the way that the way that they worded their arguments, always stayed within the rails of defending against the complaints to break down the opposition's argument, and it never had to go any deeper than that. So it was really they're standing on a shaky foundation, the SEC that is, and they're going to have to come back with a different complaint. Like this isn't going to work. It just felt like they were on weak ground.
Well, this buys time for the election and everything. Danny, I'm interested in what your sense was, Danny. What was your overarching kind of sense of like winners and losers? How did it go, and what's your opinion?
Sure. So I would say just my opinion of the matter was that the judge did a really good job of doing her homework. She's really drilled down and looked at all the things, look at their briefing, look what they were going to be saying, what they're bringing. And she had really pointed questions that were poking holes in what they were trying to claim. And as I mentioned a little bit ago, it seemed to me, I just had like, she seemed, well, I don't want to say the word irritated, but she just was not going to take their bull. And like, she'd stop them. It's kind of like, on America's Got Talent, whenever Simon's like, wait, hold on. And then do you have another song? No.
There was a couple of times, to Danny's point, there was a couple of times where the SEC really tried to create a circular argument, and she just shut that shit down right away. She wasn't going to take the circular argumentation. She wanted to drill down to the point and move on to the next point, because they don't have a good case. Because of the nature of the offering, right? Because it was a sacrifice for a political statement, not because there was no that. It doesn't matter what the investor thought they were buying into or not buying into. The disclaimer was you're giving your coins away and you're getting nothing back based on the language. So,
wow.
That brought up a real interesting. Welcome this way. That brought up a real interesting, I would say, conversation, because they're pointing out the exact verbiage, right? They're both quoting like it was fun too, listening to these high power attorneys quoting Richard Hart, like from his video, like quote, this. And also there were some statements that they made that was from his signed affidavit. So apparently they had questions for him and everything that he had to answer. So they were answering, and it was Richard what they said, because it's like exact wording he would say. So that was cool hearing that. But when it comes to, I would say, just in general, the way that everything was presented so cleanly. You were asking about the SEC attorneys. There was two of them that did all the talking. One of the guys, he kind of sat kind of far back from the microphone. And it was pretty annoying because you're trying to hear him sometimes, but talking, like if somebody's real confident, they're going to be up there next to that microphone. That's probably just subconscious. Now I'm looking at the body language or something. He's kind of leaned over, but not even up against the mic. Kind of leaned over against the table instead of sitting up, speaking into that mic. I would say confidently. These are probably subconscious things. That's what I felt about it. You were asking about how they did and what they felt like. There was a lot of, so she'd ask a question, and there'd be a lot of, the pauses and everything. Whereas whenever she asked questions of Richard's attorneys, they were spot on. They were so prepared. Yeah. And we did talk with the attorney. I did get talk to one of the attorneys a little bit afterward. But just as they were kind of finishing up or trying to get up there, I heard them talking about, hey, this was pretty much just like we practiced yesterday. So they basically got together, and there's a guy. I'm turning the wrong way. There was a guy that they brought in that was a former SEC attorney, and so he was basically like a sparring partner. And so he was like, yeah, pretty much like what we practiced yesterday, the points that they made. So they were very ready. They were very ready.
I'll say too, in the very beginning, I forgot this part till just now, the SEC actually gave up on the alter ego statement.
Oh, wow.
So they gave up on that altogether, and they really went after Richard. To some, and then that also strengthened the jurisdiction argument for the defense.
Yeah, that was interesting too, because
how about the part about that Richard's broadcasting to the globe, but they're trying to direct energy down to that. It's directed at U.S. citizens when he's just speaking openly on a global platform. This was kept coming up over and over about, and they're trying to kind of coerce their way into this situation where Richard's directing this at U.S. citizens, which is just to fit it into their box of what their legal authority gives them, instead of, but then in that process of discovery, the SEC guys like saying that it was a global thing, but also that it was directed at you. So it's like, it's either, they can't have it both ways.
Yeah. I will say this. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. This is.
I will
awesome.
say this. The one thing, the only one thing that I think that the SEC brought up that I do see as a good point that they made, so to speak, because most of it were not good points. Most of it we're just like, either it was not factual when they talk about things like Richard putting on these Hex conferences and promoting Hex and all this stuff. It's like he never put on a Hex conference. But the one thing that they did bring up was that. But what's funny is it's like they brought this up. It's not in anywhere in the brief or in the complaint or anything. But what he said was, well, clearly it was directed to U.S. Investors, right? Because of the fact that he always talked about the Howey test a lot, and that's an American term. It's a U.S. term for securities of the U.S., and so clearly it was for U.S. investors. So to me, that was really the only point that I think that they made that was actually a good point, so to speak.
So the fourth leg that I forgot to mention was this concept that the judge is going to have to come to learn, which is about this decentralized technology. The part that she might need to learn a little more about was how a blockchain wallet can receive funds indefinitely. Okay, so because the blockchain wallet exists on the internet, you can access it from anywhere in the world. The sacrifice wallets are out there, and to this day, you cannot prevent somebody from sending money to those wallets.
Yeah.
So I believe, in essence, if the judge can kind of come to terms with that fact, that this whole idea of the extension of the sacrifice phase, because that did come up.
Did you talk to him about that?
This is the first I've talked about it. This was like the fourth piece, right? So she needs to grapple with this and understand that there is no stopping people from sending transactions to the sacrifice wallets indefinitely, but that Richard did make a statement, and this is what the defense said, that Richard did make a statement that stop sending money to the sacrifice wallets, and that on the website it actually said the sacrifice phase is over. So that was another important.
So the point that they were trying to make was that there was a sacrifice period, and during that sacrifice period of these funds were being taken and being used for something outside of. And so then they said, but the sacrifice period officially ended, but people were still giving money to that. And so they were saying that it was, and people, and also there was something where Richard talked about, of course, they don't point out him saying, stop sending money, don't send money. They don't tell you about that. But they did say something about him saying, about those people getting something, they did still get something. So, in their mind, they're saying that was an unofficial extension of the sacrifice period, and so it brought into play anytime he spoke about these things in a positive light. Say, whenever he was talking on for example, got invited to the Hex conference and talked about Pulse Chain, or they said he was promoting a security while it was still in the initial offering, because the judge was like, well, these things that happen outside the initial offering. They're saying no, they happen inside the initial offering, because by de facto, the fact that they were still taking funds, it still extended that initial offering period.
Right? So then the defense went on to explain that, look, anybody can send money to the sacrifice wallet whenever, forever, and even and Richard could say don't send, and it doesn't matter. That's just how the technology works fundamentally. So.
Wow.
Look, this case is going to bring to light a lot of things, I think, and really set precedent in a lot of ways for DeFi. So I feel really good about it. I think we're in a good place right now. We have the right team, and I couldn't be more confident that this is going to end up nicely for us.
You
Maybe
guys
a
are
slap on the wrist when it's all said and done. We'll see.
Yeah, you guys are pros. This feels like we're on like a major network. You guys are giving breakdown, which is fantastic. 4 points. Well, Axis, thank you so much. Danny, thank you so much for this. There's 1,187 people here on 3 platforms. It's amazing the interest in all this stuff. But guys, you did a great breakdown. Anything else you guys want to share? This is Axis Alive. You got to follow him across all social. Danny the singer as well. But Axis, you're going to do something tomorrow talking about these same things. Can you promote that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll be doing a seminar at 2 p.m. For the Pulse Chain Tour, and I'll be doing like a macro chart overview for the group that's there. It's a 45-minute talk, and I'll be basically making a case for Pulse Chain and a Hex on the back of Ethereum being the foundation of DeFi, and that Pulse is just a faster, cheaper, better network, funded and more opportunity, and XYZ. And I'm going to land on something pretty cool at the end, and make a big announcement at the end of that talk. So you guys are going to find out about it publicly next week. I think I'm going to do a live demo and a video announcement. I'm excited for. So
Awesome.
Yeah, we're building. The Axin army is alive and well and building it for Hex. So I'm happy to announce that, and that's all happening going into election season and
Wow.
in the middle of this big case. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of this. And I want to thank Danny for giving me the opportunity to come on stream with you and kind of present the facts for you guys.
Well, the final statement I want to know, now that you sat through 2 hours of this, what is your sentiment for the Pulse Chain, Hex, and the Richard Hart ecosystem, knowing what you know now?
Oh, I'm extremely bullish. Extremely bullish. Absolutely.
I mean, watching those guys articulate that defense, like, and knowing that we as a community could afford to give them as much resources as we possibly needed to defend ourselves for the end of time made me feel pretty damn powerful. So
Awesome. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much. What a great job. You guys are pros and handsome.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for having us on, Matt. And this is the singer and Axis Alive, live at the United States Courthouse. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to have it in the background.
There you go.
Live at the United States Courthouse
in Brooklyn,
SEC
New York
versus Richard Hart. Updates to come at some point in time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. All right.
See ya. Have a great one.
See ya. Folks, you know what's great is we have commentary. We're going to bring in, I'm blowing your mind, 1,280 people here, and the biggest streamer from the other side of the pond is coming in with his thoughts and commentary about this. Folks, Crypto 7, what is up? Oh, hang on. I've lost you there, buddy. You need to get the camera working, I guess. Let's see if we can get you in here. Yeah, I've got a blank screen there. Okay, he dropped off. I've got Crypto 7 coming in. He's going to give his commentary and thoughts about this. It's going to be fantastic. Literally, that was absolutely unbelievably amazing. The professionalism, having Danny and Axis there. I mean, seriously, I felt like we were on like professional network television kind of thing. Folks, this is so exciting. A lot of times, the way I've processed it is I listen to Richard Hart and I'm like, this guy's really smart. He made things very clear. But to see that these attorneys, it really shows you the lack of preparation from the SEC. And, he kind of called them the B team, right? These are the B team characters. Well, that B team was, it was shown that they were unprepared. And for them to stay so disciplined around the actual, charges and argument is incredible. But folks, we're going to try it again. Crypto 7 is here. What is up, dude? How about that? What's up, buddy?
Buddy, you're doing such a fantastic job, and it was fantastic. It's fantastic listening to Danny and Axis.
Oh my God. What did you think of that, man? That was incredible.
I am loving it. Doesn't it just feel like a moment in time, everyone?
Yes.
Please deploy the like on entry and prove that you're not a victim by subscribing to Matt, and tap the bell because YouTube sometimes untaps you. Oh, yes, this feels like a huge moment. If you're religious, fantastic. If you believe in the Matrix, and fantastic. It feels like we are participants in the Matrix about to escape. I don't know. This feels big to me. Does this feel big to everyone else? Put 7 in the chat. Put Matt in the chat if this feels huge. Listen, what's this business about everyone or about Pulse Chain being targeted at Americans?
Yeah,
I say, young man,
that's right.
I say, what's all this about? Americans,
Yeah,
Americans. So
once
anyway,
again,
we may have noticed, Gary. I may have noticed, Gary. I'm not from America.
that's right.
I am from the United Kingdom.
Wow.
I
Well,
may
that
know some of the royal family, but we don't divulge these things. I may
right,
have
right.
friends,
Discretion.
discretion and all that. But yes, yes, absolutely. I may have gone to the Queen's garden parties. I may have done. I'm definitely
Well,
not American. So anyway, I've been
yeah.
useful. I was a bit worried I might not be useful. I put a tie on
You're
because
very useful. Look at that. A tie and a hex.com shirt on. Folks, if you're not subscribed to Crypto 7, you
forget
need to
all
do
that. We're
that.
here for the-
No,
I'm
I'm a
just here
big
to help
fan,
you,
man.
buddy.
We're kicking off
I'm just
something
here
new
for you.
here. We're kicking off something new here. So, what was your sense from Axis and from Danny? What's your sense? Obviously, I'm like blown away. It was a moment. Any specific things that you're like, hey, this really resonated, or what are your thoughts? Commentary.
Oh, I was struck by how positive they both were, and I liked the fact that they were coming at it from different angles. Axis and Danny. Danny was talking about body language. I liked that. I think that's valuable when you got, because body language is important. Might sound silly, but Danny was saying, do you know what? One of the SEC didn't even seem to want to come up to the mic, and I think that is key. And Axis was talking about jurisdiction a lot. I think this jurisdiction issue might be a big one.
Yes.
And Axis was saying that the SEC didn't seem to have a case on jurisdiction, and without a case on jurisdiction, and this issue of Richard Hart not being in America and not specifically targeting Americans and things, I think that's a big one. I think I can see, looking at this jurisdiction thing, that this is one of the reasons that Richard hasn't been streaming, because when he's engaged in the live chat, they can usefully say, they can look at the IP addresses and say, look at this, 60% are Americans, and he's chatting to them. So he is in dialogue with Americans. And of course, he hasn't been doing that, so they can't claim that. And I think it's great. Of course, we've got lots of hexagons from all around the world, and I think this is an opportunity for different communities. We've got a strong UK hexagon base. They do Lambo racing all around the country, and I mean, there's all sorts of colorful UK hexagons and things, and I'm just one of many. And then we've got hexagons in the Philippines, and we've got hexagons in Puerto Rico and everywhere, Thailand. So it's going to be really hard for them to say that it's just Americans, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And, Axis broke it down. And of course, you can always rely on him to be organized and thoughtful. He broke down 4 key things. And I just want to stop and say there's 1,431 people here on 3 platforms. Most of the people are on X. So thankful for you to be here. Appreciate a follow. And I think this is a historic event in us understanding the actual nonverbal stuff that you're talking about, right? It's one thing to read a complaint. It's another thing to look at lawsuits. But when you have people, hexagons there, who are thoughtful, like Axis and Danny, saying, hey, these are the things that we picked up on. The SEC's taken a number of losses. The debt box case is one of the biggest cases where they actually got penalized. But this is one of those things where, it felt like to me, and this is how I'd characterize it, is that the SEC came unprepared. They wrote a poor argument, and then they got picked apart by pros. And I feel like a lot of judges don't have a lot of patience for people who are unprepared. And
Definitely.
the way you wrote it, the issues with, and he said 4 things. He said jurisdiction was number 1. Number 2 was this fraud thing was thrown out the window because of this no expectation. They quoted him over and over, and we heard it hundreds, if not thousands of times out of Richard Hart's mouth. Your coins are gone. There's no expectation. 3, he said the chronology of when things were spent, and then this open-ended thing about, you have a wallet that anyone can give to. I love how Axie broke down this 4th point, which was the fact that, anyone can do whatever they want with their money. And if you basically make this case about controlling people's ability to throw money into a hole, because in a way, if you say it's a sacrifice, your coins are gone, there's no expectation, she just can't believe that people would do that. Well, people do that all the time. It's called a donation. And what's amazing to me about this is, yeah, there are people who believe so much in this that they would literally throw their money away. Now, proving the expectation, the challenge is the Howey test. There's not a contract. And one of the challenges in the Howey test is the fact that there's an investment contract. And so, what I took away from this whole thing was Richard Hart was right. That's what I took away. What did you take away?
I mean, you touched on some really fantastic points. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the fact that the judge looked visibly irritated, I think it's back to the body language thing. I
Yep.
think that's a real tell. I think if she wasn't sure, she would be a little bit more, stoic about it and guarded. I think that's obviously very encouraging. And it's typical of what we have seen with the judiciary are irritated with the SEC's approach. This point you made about how the SEC were ill prepared and the judge was irritated by that. Nothing irritates them more. They've moved the date at least once. If they moved it twice, I mean, that's very irritating to them as well. Obviously, we've got Tuesday. I think Tuesday
Yes.
is such a big deal, and that's looking very, very good. If we're allowed to talk about the election, I mean, it looks
Yes,
very
let's do it.
strong. Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at that closely. If you actually look at where Trump was in the previous two elections on the polling, and factor the fact that the Democrats are always given too much value in the polling, then there's too much bias towards the Democrats. When you factor that, then I think he's looking very strong. And in all the swing states, and things seem to be going worse and worse for the Democrats, which is huge for crypto. It's absolutely huge for crypto.
Absolutely. I'm going to give a review for anyone who's joined us. There's 1,565 people on here on 3 platforms. There's right now it looks like there's close to 400 on YouTube. This is incredible, folks. We just had the oral arguments at the Eastern District of New York, the courthouse there. We had, looks like about 80 hexicans came to sit in, got dressed up.
Wow.
A lot of people traveled from all over to come in to support Richard Hart. Obviously, Richard was not there. He had his attorneys, and it was the SEC attorneys. And this is the first time where oral arguments, they made the case orally to the judge. And we just got that response from Danny the singer and from Axis Alive. And I think what's incredible about, to review that, is the 4 things that Axie said were big, is that the jurisdiction issue is the number one. And that's what Crypto 7 just said as well. He's like, hey, we've got hexicans everywhere. And if you're going to say that only Richard was talking to people in the US, that's such a great case. And it's kind of offensive to people that are across the board.
Yes.
This is a different world. And, Axie said something that just got me. He said, like a chill went up his spine, almost like he felt like he was kind of in an historic moment, that what's being dealt with here in this judicial system is something they haven't dealt with before. And that's this idea of DeFi, but also DeFi in the context of a global platform, is that who has jurisdiction over these things and what does constitute. But that's the key. And this is one thing I want to ask you a question. I've often said that this isn't about faster, better, cheaper. This is about building an alternative financial system. And the vision of Richard Hart is actually to build something that, when all the centralized powers with CBDCs and social credit scores and digital IDs come, that we're going to have a place that we can actually transact and operate that is actually free. What are your thoughts on that? Is that what we're building? Is that what this is saying to you as well?
Yeah, I think that was something that Richard was conscious of, which was that the more that crypto got adopted, the more we started seeing the Celsiuses and that sort of thing, the FTXs, and people were persuaded to hand over their keys for a little bit more, the promise of more yield to people like Alex Mashinsky. And I think that was something that Richard saw coming. He even highlighted who he thought were the scammers. He highlighted all the scammers, and so yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think he does have a heart for protecting people, and he doesn't like to see people being scammed. I think that's certainly true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree with you completely.
Well, and this is an amazing time in human history, folks. And I think that it's proven by how many people on the stream, the interest in all this. But I want to ask you this question, kind of talk about this topic. Obviously Richard has gotten, been called all kinds of names. It feels like almost like a Trump type of character, that he's been very controversial, but he's always stuck to these principles. And what I think is amazing about Richard is that he has kept going, right? He's continued to move forward in this. but he has advocated for the little guy. And when you're advocating, you brought up FTX and Mashinsky and all these people that got scammed, right? And here we are in DeFi, which doesn't have a tremendous amount of the market, but has the promise of the origins of Bitcoin. Literally, the promise of it is it's that no counterparty risk, right? No counterparty risk, literally no middlemen. You hold your self custody of your own keys. All of these true tenets of DeFi are shining. But here's the big question. People across the world still obviously are critical of Richard Hart. And in that criticism, there is, I think they're going to have to kind of eat their words, because what he's out here doing and advocating for is something that will reverberate across all of crypto, is that setting this precedent. And I don't know that it happens with this case specifically, but the fact of the matter is this is good for anyone who is in the crypto world. This isn't just beneficial to hexagons. I really think that this glory thing that Richard Hart is after, he might actually get through this process. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And because it's late in the UK, I want to say this while it's on my mind, but I want to, on behalf, I think, of the 1,400 people who are watching, I want to congratulate you, buddy, for delivering these 2 power streams today. I don't think there was a person, I genuinely don't think there was a person that could have done this better. This is definitely your skill. It's
Thanks, man.
filling in the gaps and pulling it all together. Being an MC, I think you do this exceptionally well. So congratulations to you. It feels like a big moment.
It does. It does.
And I'm just thrilled to have been able to play a little part, although I didn't, I feel like a fifth wheel here. I don't think you need me jumping on it later.
No, you know what's great about you though? Here's the thing though. What I've seen people come and go, right? I've seen projects come and go, and consistency is important. And you've been consistent, and it's hard in a bear market. It's hard when people are criticizing you. There's been all kinds of things thrown at you. Here's the thing. Staying power is the key. Being consistent is the key. And we know as the sentiment changes, is that we need folks like you, like me, like everyone else, or anyone who's considering doing this, because this isn't a centralized thing. I don't get paid by anyone to do this. I do this because I believe that this future that we're fighting for is really important, and that it's the first time in human history that financial power and political power have been separated. And if we don't speak up, and if you don't stream in the UK and I don't stream here in the US, and we don't advocate for these principles, because I feel like a lot of people within the community are arguing about little details when we actually have to galvanize ourselves around the strength of Richard Hart, which is his leadership in this area of setting precedent, setting up a vertically aligned ecosystem that is truly decentralized, that gives people, I mean, think about this, your grandkids and those that follow are going to have this system. And we are a part of building that with Richard Hart. Whether you're coding or talking or whatever it may be, you are actually contributing to, I think, a future that is much, much more abundant, because it's not controlled by essentially centralized players. This is freedom financially if we do this right, but it takes a whole group of people to remember that it's not fighting over my coin or your coin. No, we're building an alternative financial system that is for the people and by the people, and not controlled by Richard Hart or Crypto 7, right? It's free for you to use.
Absolutely. And look at the numbers. I mean, this is big channel. This is top 5
1709 on 3 platforms.
I mean, that's Ivan on Tech crypto banter territory, isn't it? I mean, that's mega big channel. And these people aren't victims. These people are all believers in the things that you espouse brilliantly. You say it much better than I can. And it does feel like a moment in time.
Yeah.
And everyone that's watching now, you might feel you're doing a big deal. If you've tapped the like, you're making a big deal, and you are part of something very big. And it does feel like that, as you say, with the CBDCs, with the lack of freedom and things which is coming in from the loony left. It does feel like that. It does feel like we're part of something big here. Yeah, you asked me a question about I mean, for instance, I was in the chat in Discover Crypto today, which is Ben's old channel, and I put in a super chat, and I said, congratulating them on a good show, because I think they do a good job. And I said, Richard Hart is taking on the SEC on behalf of all of DeFi, and a couple of the hosts weren't very happy about that. I think it's because, of course, Ben Armstrong is keen on Richard Hart and Hex and Polshin, and of course that's the channel that he sort of left under a cloud. So they're a bit more anti-Richard than most big channels. But one of the presenters, DZ, said, "No, I think that's right. I think Crypto 7's right. I think he is taking on DeFi." And the other two sort of came in line. And there will be a moment, and going to your question, Matt, there will be a moment soon when everyone starts to realize just what a wonderful person Richard Hart is. And I think that Ivan on Tech is very key to that. I think that they all look to Ivan because he knows his Python from his Java. So I think they're gonna
I love it.
I think they're going to is C++ from his Salinity.
Yeah.
I think they're going to say, well, Ivan likes Richard. Ivan's getting rich with the Pulse chain ecosystem, putting in the APIs into Morales and things. You know, we talk about fundraising and things. Do you know how much Ivan on Tech raised for Morales?
How much?
$50 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
hope, there's just one other thing about what they were saying. This business about, the SEC seemed to be wanting to make a thing about the fact he extended the sacrifice a little,
Yeah.
or it became extended because people keep sending the money, which, as you say, I heard you say, you can't stop. They're really scrabbling at straws there, aren't they? They're really clutching at straws, aren't they? This seems like a really weak point. And like you say, the judge is irritated. I heard Danny say, or it was Axis said, the judge is picking holes in their arguments. It all looks fantastic. I just can't believe the engagement that you've achieved. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to everyone that's watching. I genuinely mean that. I genuinely think we're all going to be rewarded for our faith.
Yeah, there's no question. Well, let's do this. Let's speculate a little bit, because I think there's a number of people. Yo Mammy, is this right? Yo Mammy with 369 here, One Moon. I'm doing this for you. We're going to speculate a little bit here, Crypto 7. I want to talk about the future, okay? Because this does feel like a moment, and it feels like, there's a number of reasons for it. The cycle, number one, we're in that period of time where we look at the cycle, and it's coinciding. If you really look at 2017 to 2021, and you look at the 3-year period between the all-time high and then when it broke the all-time high. 2 days ago, we just saw Bitcoin break the all-time high. We're going to see Ethereum break the all-time high. We're going to see another altcoin summer. We got in my opinion, about 12 months of this to the top. Richard's called it at 2041.5 for Bitcoin. We've got a dream 2025 in front of us, but that's not all. That's the cycle, and that's just the nature of the cycle. What's incredible is institutional money coming in, the adoption, the mainstreaming of crypto, but more importantly, I think, is this election. And what I think is amazing about this is this election is going to reverberate around. Why? Because the party that's leading right now is suggesting we should stay out of foreign wars, that we should stop these wars, and has a plan to do it. A peaceful world with increased liquidity is an absolute dynamite combination for crypto going through the roof. And so when people say one moon, well, let's speculate a bit. I believe that we're going to see the top at this time next year. That means you get 12 months. What do you say to that? What are you looking at? Let's speculate a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's looking more and more like that. We got a little bit fooled by the fact that people got overexcited by the ETFs being approved for Bitcoin and Ethereum. That meant that Bitcoin ran up a lot too soon, but we're now exactly where we should be. And I think it's been particularly cruel for Ethereum because it went. I think people are only getting frustrated by Ethereum because it went up to 4,200 in March this year, and of course now it's 2,000 something. I think if we just ticked up from the $900 base and we were now 2,500, everyone would be fine about it, and they'd say, oh, "Okay, it's because Bitcoin has to go first, etc." I think we're playing out this cycle. It's crazy the amount of repetition. There's far much more repetition than there is rhyming. As you say, the money printers are going brr now. The liquidity cycle suggests that we've got a fantastic 12 months or so ahead of us. The election, I agree completely with you, Matt. I think the election is massive. And I think it's, here in the UK, we've just had the left have just won the election. They promised no tax rises, and they've introduced huge tax rises yesterday. So it's like, this is what we're getting used to. They say one thing and they do another,
Yep.
And I'm not necessarily against taxes, but you can't say you're not going to increase taxes and then immediately increase taxes, and that's what's going on, of course, And no, I think that in terms of predictions, which I think you're sort of like a sense for how much money we can make in Hex and Pulse Chain, the next 5x is the hardest 5x, because I think once we've got this first 5x from here, so once PLS is at 3 zeros and a 2, once PLSX is back above the SAC price of 3 zeros and a 1, I think that's when all of crypto start piling in, and then as more and more retail come in, then they are going to head towards us. If you look at Hex on Ethereum and zoom out, it looks like a wreck chart. It looks like a scam. It looks like a dead coin. So we need Hex on Ethereum to go up quite a bit more. And even if you're all about Hex on Pulse Chain and all about PLS, PLSX, and PDI and whatever on Pulse Chain, Richard is synonymous with Hex on Ethereum, and there's an association between our ecosystem and Hex on Ethereum. And when people look at that price chart on CoinMarket, it don't look too good.
Right.
So not unless you're looking at the 5-minute chart, And so it would be great if we could see Hex on Ethereum start to go up to prove that it's a resurrection coin. The coins that make the most money are resurrection coins that people have written off. People wrote off Solana in 2022 at $8. Who here would like to have bought Solana at $8 18 months ago?
Right.
It's going to be $250 in about 4 weeks, all that has to happen is Bitcoin has to get above 75,000. What it'll do is it'll run up between about 85 to 89,000. Don't be surprised, everyone, if altcoins don't go up at all in that period, and Max Kaiser and Tone Vase will be partying, and Michael Saylor, and then it'll stop, it'll pause, and when it pauses, boom, that's when we all go. And of course, if we've won the election, if I don't really think that we need to worry too much about the SEC. And from the feedback from Danny and Axis and yourself, etc., it looks like that went very well. I talk to big investors regularly, and they all say to me they want to see the court case in their rearview mirror. And then they say to me, come and talk to me again about buying more Hex and Pulse Chain after the court date on the 31st. And I've got it diarized to talk to these big investors then. And so I talk to big investors regularly. And they don't like the uncertainty of the court case. They just want it behind them. Sure. And we have got it behind them now, everyone. And fantastic. And wonderful.
Wow. Well, 1,814 now on 3 platforms. I really thank you. The majority of you folks are on the X platform. It has really been a huge deal since Elon Musk bought X. But let's talk about this election with some detail. I think at the beginning, everything was focused on Trump and his personality. Of course, when the assassination attempt happened, and of course, he, got up and said, fight, fight, fight. That was the moment that Elon Musk stepped up and said, that is the proof of character. But what's happened since then, which I think is really significant, is it's not really about Trump. He's got JD Vance as his vice president, which is a really unique person because he comes from Appalachia. He's, blue collar. It's really shifted those things. He is incredibly gifted. But when RFK walked out onto that stage and joined the Trump team, it was a very, very special moment that shifted things. Tulsi Gabbard became a Republican, which is incredible. And then, of course, you can't, one of the youngest and most bright rising stars, Vivek Ramaswamy, is on that team, which I think is incredible for younger people. And then ultimately the richest man in the world, who is going to have the Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge, which is, talk about somebody that understands and loves the meme and crypto. But this is, I think people are looking at that, and the left, who is really scrambling right now, is saying, oh, look at, Trump did all these bad things. He's a felon. But look at all these people lined up. Guess who does the work? And to think that we're going to have that caliber of people, because in my opinion, in the past, politics has literally dragged the bottom of quality people. And I think this is going to change that. And we're seeing these exceptional people come in and go, you know what? Common sense. Things have gotten so crazy and whacked out. And it's almost like we need to have this era. And it feels a lot like, to me, and you and I are probably of similar age, you just look better, is the morning in America when Ronald Reagan, if you recall back in 79, 80, when literally there were, students that were held hostage in Tehran. And here we have, boom, a new president and a new shift in American politics. That's what it feels like to me. However, I think we're going to go through a very tough time because of the left and what they're planning on doing between November 5th and January 6th. So this election, what does it mean for us? Gary Gensler is gone, right? We've got sensible people in there. We're pulling back on spending, and we're essentially saying no. We're pushing back. And to me, whichever way this goes, crypto is going to go through its cycle. But I do think if there is a Trump win and we've got these kind of people at the helm, and he does what he says he's going to do, unlike the people in the politicians in the UK, we're going to actually see some favorable environment for people to really invest. And that's not even to count the icing on the top, which is Microsoft's, their shareholders agreed to let them buy Bitcoin. This is becoming mainstream. We're still sitting around 5% of the global population that's in crypto. Folks, this is a ride. And this one, I think, is going to be a super cycle. And so I'm really excited about what that might mean. But the key to this, what you say every time on your stream, is you have to do your own research. We're expressing our excitement. We're telling you the timetable and giving you a warning that once the top is in, and you have to wait another 4 years. But this is the perfect time. And I'm so excited to be able to stream to so many people to tell them this is an opportunity of a lifetime, but you have to do the work. DeFi is not a nanny program. No one's going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. What are your thoughts on those things?
Oh, just that you put things so well, and I couldn't agree with everything you just said more. I was talking to a big, just picking up on a few of the fantastic points, but I completely agree with all of them. Talking to a big investor, I was getting a bit stressed because it's actually 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump.
Yes.
If it hadn't been for the very keen eyes of Secret Service agent that wouldn't have seen the gun barrel at the 5th hole, I think it was. They would have definitely got there, telescopic sights and all that. Dread to think, So 2 assassination attempts. But I was getting a bit concerned, and my big investor friend said, listen, don't worry, because JD Vance is presidential material. And you make a very powerful point, Matt, that generally presidents will pick the weakest possible vice president so they're not a threat. And I think it goes back to the Bible and things. You see that sort of thing. But I think that JD Vance is a future president for sure.
Yep.
He's so articulate. He's so eloquent. He's a leader. He's fantastic. And he comes from a humble background. What an absolute inspiration. I wish we had someone to vote for in my country as good as that. So congratulations, guys. You've got a good one there.
Well, and that's brilliant.
With Donald Trump, because he's prepared to allow somebody like that and not be threatened and things. So that was one of the points you made there, and that was I couldn't agree more. Talking about the prospects for crypto, I mean, as you say, and you touched on this as well, I think the day before yesterday, the net buying through the Bitcoin ETF was 830 million, and then yesterday it was 880 million. And I took a look at how many Bitcoin are mined a day, and it's just 900 Bitcoin a day. And I did my little calculation. That's about 67 million, I think. So obviously, we had 890 bought net. That's after any selling. 890 million bought yesterday, and only $67 million worth was mined, and only $67 million worth can be mined a day. So when you subtract that, you've still got $820 million that they're looking for. Okay, so we can't get it from the mining. It's not like gold, where the higher the price of gold goes up, the more efficient and the more cost effective it is to mine in different places and, go looking for gold elsewhere and on asteroids. It's not like that.
Right.
It can only be 900 Bitcoin a day. That's only $67 million. There's 880 million being bought at the moment. And I think what's coming is that at some point, I don't know when, it might be in 3 months, it might be in 6 months, but at some point, the institutions are going to slow down their Bitcoin buying, and they're going to buy at least as much of Ethereum. And that's when things will just go nuts, because Ethereum's smaller and it's fractionally deflationary, whereas Bitcoin is fractionally inflationary, as we just explained. So I mean the Ethereum price is going to go crazy. I'm very bullish on Ethereum. And it's just that it's been a bit of a slow starter, or we've been a bit tricked by the fact it went to 4,200 sooner than it should have done. So
Yep.
I agree. I agree with everything you say. I think that we're all very lucky to be here together now, and don't cheat your bags. And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's nice to be in this. It's nice to have something to talk about. And I put up the chart here. This is the hex pulse chain hex chart, and I just want to take a look at this. Is really in the last hour, and people often say you buy the rumor and you sell the news. And for everyone that needs to know this, there's no decision that's been made in the SEC case. So this is the rumor. You got information from Axes, you got information from people who are in the room, and the rumor is that, hey, look, something special is happening. The SEC folks, they were not sharp. They were not on the ball, and they got kind of ripped apart. We've got the best attorneys, the best, the best of the best. Look at what the chart's showing, right? This is that bump from going, all right, buying that rumor. Well, you talk about there's so many people sitting in the wings. People are literally waiting for this election to happen. But folks, if you imagine this future where these things come into alignment and you imagine, all right, the last time we had a bull run, it was the last 5 months of it. If you actually look at the chart where the parabolic, events were, that was about 5 months, and it was just bananas. I mean, it was incredible. Well, we're sitting about, I think, 12 months from the top. These are the indicators of things, right? You get rumors of information and these type of things. This could have gone the opposite other way. It could have said, something could have happened where it was like, oh no, they have this super strong case, and boy, this judge was really on the side of the SEC, and we got that sense. That was not the case. And so if you think about this, it brought up these questions that are very, very difficult to deal with. And we've always felt that way with crypto, that it was going to challenge this idea of jurisdiction. And like, hold on, this is a global thing. It's decentralized. No one owns it. There's no CEO. There's no headquarters. And we've seen all the centralized stuff fail, like FTX, that had businesses and had entities. And here we are. And for me, one, it's like Richard Hart is even more of a genius than I thought. I'm seeing it come out because he knew this ahead of time. But more importantly, I'm seeing the momentum shift, like you said. We're seeing a shift. This is a moment. But folks, I can't tell you, I experienced that last bull run. So did you. And it's exciting, but you have to understand the stuff and get in at the right time. Timing is everything in crypto, especially with this volatility. And to me, that's the thing that is life changing. But you have to make those decisions. You have to do your own research. We're just basically saying, folks, it's time. That's what I see.
Yeah, I feel it as well. You're talking about seeing a lot, and I feel it and I
Yes.
sense it, and I think that something which is certainly the case. And yeah, I think that it's happening now. It is happening, and I think that we've all had our education. I think we're lucky because retail start coming in, but it's the quickest to react, which come in, and I see your phone's pinging. It's probably people wanting to know advice on how to get into crypto, and that's what I'm getting now. And but it's the smartest of retail, and then more and more will come in. They're really waiting for 100,000, and
Yeah.
when Bitcoin goes to 100,000, they're going to start pouring in like you wouldn't believe. And Ivan on Tech was talking about how he thought it was going to happen in April and May. And of course, it's taken a bit longer because this point that the cycle had to behave exactly the way as it always does. But it's going to happen. And at that point, it will be payback time for everyone watching now because we've really educated ourselves. We haven't, I think when retail come in, they realize that they're already into the bull market and they're rushing around. And that's when they make mistakes. And maybe it's with their trusting someone like trusting like someone like Alex Mashinsky or Sam Bankman-Fried, or it's how they store their crypto, or going to a dodgy website or something, and because they're new and things. Whereas we're all equipped to now, listening to guys like you and Matty all in about sudden wealth syndrome and and all that sort of thing. I think that we're in a fantastically well positioned to help each other up.
Yes.
And as a community to help each other up and to really escape the matrix. And I think that's what we're all going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. 1,928 people on 3 platforms here. you're blowing my mind, folks. But here's the thing: something has shifted in the matrix. Meaning, there is a this was a big day, and so I want to recap for everyone who's coming here. We've got people in the chat asking about the hearing. So the hearing only lasted about 2 hours. These were the oral arguments between the SEC and Richard Hart's attorneys. And we had about, I think, 75 to 80 hexagons who went and actually sat within the courtroom and listened to these oral arguments. Danny, the singer, and Axie's Alive gave us a breakdown. So you can go back into this and you can rewatch that. But the core things that they pointed out, and Axie's, I think, brilliantly broke it down into 4 key points. Number one, the issue of jurisdiction was number one. The jurisdiction, they made a really, really strong case that, hey, this is a global thing. He was speaking to a global audience, and there's people that are a part of this that are all over the world. And for you to narrow that down into New York and it being a US thing doesn't hold water. And that resonated with the judge. Number two, the fraud issue, right? This idea that there was fraud and he stole money from people in this offering, like an ICO. What Axie said was that no, it was clear time and time again, not only from the affidavit from Richard, but also from all of his public comments, that this was a sacrifice, that your coins are gone when you sacrifice them, and that you're sacrificing for freedom of speech. He said that the judge was somewhat dumbfounded that people would actually do that, give $1 billion. I'm kind of dumbfounded myself, but that's the power of this. That's what's so unique about this, is that Richard Hart was able to convince people to say, hey, this is worth sacrificing for. Number three was chronology, that they didn't prepare their argument and the case itself in their written documentation that really had continuity within the chronology of when money was spent, when, quote unquote, he used the money for his personal gain. And so that fell apart quickly. And number four, which I think is one of the most interesting, is this issue that an offering, when you put a wallet up on the blockchain, it essentially is a perpetual thing that anyone could send money to. And the fact of the matter was, people just kept sending it. And I think that what he pointed out and I picked up was that you can't make a decision that limits people from doing what they want with their money. I mean, if you want to jump out of an airplane, you can go pay to do it. If you want to ride motorcycles really fast, Crypto 7, you can do that. You have the choice of what you want to do with your money. You want to take drugs, you want to do whatever, you can do risky things. You can't have, the regulatory body, the SEC, standing in the way of maybe the good or bad things that you do with your money. That's not the precedent that they want to set. And this idea of there wasn't an offering, it was literally an open wallet you could send to, I thought was an interesting point as well. Any other points that stuck out to you, Seven?
Axis was saying that the SEC looked outclassed, and they just really seem to be on a back foot. And I hear some hexagons say, "Oh, it's not in Donald Trump's gift to sack Gary Gensler," but I don't know if you've ever worked in the public sector, but when the president says, I think you should be looking for a different job, you just go. You don't wait. It's not, in other words, he may not have the authority to sack Gary Gensler, but, a couple of words from him and he can't hang around. It's just this sort of.
Well, the good news is if Trump wins, he won't be the Treasury Secretary, and that's good. Hey, by the way, we just broke 2,000 live viewers. Thank you guys for this. Is like blowing my mind. So I appreciate everyone who's coming here. Most of you are on the X platform. Please follow. We're going to continue to do this. I mean, let me ask you, Seven, are you going to continue to stream through the bull run?
Absolutely. And I think this has been the most enjoyable day, and probably an indication of just how enjoyable the next 12 months are going to be. Because you, I think we've got 12 months. I think that if you're uncomfortably invested in Hex and Pulse Chain now, you can be taking some nice profit from your Pulse Chain and things in 6 months' time, 3 months' time even. I think some people will be in a completely different place financially in December. I think November is going to be amazing. I've been saying this on this channel. October will be a green month. We'll look back at it as another green month. It will be. I think we started October at 61K. So for sure, October is going to be a green month. Even if we finish at 65 or 66, it's a nice green month. Just while we've got, did you say 2,000 people watching?
Yeah, 1988 at this moment.
Amazing. Let's keep it going, guys. Put in, if you're not from the States, just put what country you're in. If you're in Luxembourg, if you're in Belgium, if you're in Yugoslavia, just put it down. and let's get a feel for how many different countries. And if you have got a community of hexicans or pulsicans in different countries, and maybe you make yourselves heard, let people know that we're not all United States. Obviously I'm not from the United States, and
we got Switzerland, we got UK crew, we got Australia, we've got this is awesome, dude. Everybody's responding to you.
Brilliant.
Aussie at 10 pounds. Thanks for the coverage. This dismissal verdict takes a while, right? Yeah. So we're not going to hear this could go into the new year. I think what's great about this though is it's given the judge an understanding of the arguments. And so the question is, could it be dismissed? It could. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Likely, probably begin towards the beginning of the year. But it's a huge win because it's been characterized as, hey, once again, the SEC is unprepared. But thank you so much for that super chat. Appreciate you. We got the Netherlands, Australia, UK, South Africa, Texas. That's a country in and of itself. New Zealand, California, Belgium, Montreal, Canada, and Mexico.
Mexico, I like it. Yeah,
the
there's
island.
There's a lot. I mean, well, you got Sommy, haven't you? He's from Australia. Tangent's Australian.
Yeah.
Lots of Australians. There's lots of Australians, and I mean,
Austria.
I know. I got people from Nigeria who are in Hex and Pulse Chain.
Yep.
South Africa came up there, didn't they?
Yes.
It's amazing. So, Richard's been busy going to Nigeria and Kenya and shilling his coins to all these people, hasn't he?
I mean, he's been doing these offerings everywhere. That's a good point. Oh, dude, this is good. Crypto 7, only daily streamer throughout the whole bear market. Help me personally keep the faith in DCA. Thank you, brother. That checks my pulse. That's a huge compliment to you, dude. You have been very, very consistent.
Well,
Well, keep it up. I want to encourage you too, because it's been a dark bear market, honestly, and I've been discouraged. I know you've been discouraged, but here's the thing. We got positive things to talk about. And you know what I want to see? I want to see as many people as possible March 6 through 9 in Las Vegas, because that's going to be, that I would say that's the most fun I've had in this, is meeting up with people, shaking hands, high-fiving, and being part of the excitement. And this is the time to get together in the groups, because you meet people and you make connections that you never would have been able to otherwise. And so if there's meetups in your country or in your continent, you should go to those. If you're in the States or can make it to the States, there is the Pulse Chain, tour that's going to be, holding that conference March 6 through 9 in Las Vegas. And that's going to be fun.
Well, that's going to be more than fun, because it's perfectly timed, and timing is everything, whether in business or sport or romance. Timing is everything. And by the 6th to the 9th, you'll have had that 5x. I remember me saying the next 5x is a hard 5x. Yep. Because once Hex on Ethereum's 5x, it won't look like a dead coin anymore. It looked like a recovery coin. The worst possible coin's a dead coin. The best possible coin is a recovery coin. So we need the next 5x. Once we've got that, then everyone believes. And so when people rock up at the conference in Vegas, 6th to 9th of March, prices will be a lot higher than they are now. There's no doubt about that. March? No. I mean, even November, as I say. Yeah. November is going to be amazing, and December. So by March, you're very safe there. And of course, people that are introducing projects onto Pulse Chain, there's still plenty of time for them to have amazing gains. And that's exciting. I wish I was going to that. God, goodness me.
Well, what's amazing is it's not a surprise to anybody that's in this game that you buy low and you sell high. And so often it's hard to know when the tops are in and when the bottoms are in. Folks, it's been very, very consistent, these cycles. If you just pay attention, you probably looked at the same chart I have, Seven. When you take the Ethereum chart, the very simple one, you don't have to put it on log. And you take that chart and you look at the last time. So if you go back to 2017, 2018 at that top, and then you basically chart over to the point in which you went through the whole bear market and it broke the all-time high, the previous all-time high. It was exactly to the week 3 years. If you lay that over from the last top where Ethereum breaks the all-time high, which would be about $4,500. it looks like that's going to be almost exactly 3 years to the week. So what's amazing to me is these things, like you said, they rhyme, if you will, right? And that's what you have to pay attention to. You have to understand the cycle because this is still the early part of the adoption globally of this, but it's gaining so much steam because it is literally being invested in with institutions and all of that. But the opportunities are in the alternative coins. Can you speak to that, Seven, to help people understand that maybe new to crypto that there are blue chips, right? There's Bitcoin and Ethereum, but when we talk about these altcoins and we think about Pulse and Pulse X and all that, they fall into a different category, and that's where the opportunities and the gains are. Um, can you share with people that may not be familiar with this of why that's so significant? That's where the opportunity is.
Yeah, sure. So you've got three coins that even the Himalayan goat farmers have heard of, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin. And that's
Yep.
why you're seeing Dogecoin go up 30% a week at the moment, because people go, "Oh, I've got some Dogecoin on my phone. I'll top that up." So people have heard of Dogecoin. You mentioned Elon Musk. There's a link there as well, and things like that. So people start to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum first. And as retail come in every cycle, we need retail to come in to pump us higher and higher. In that sense, crypto is a Ponzi like anything else, like Tesla, like Apple, or anything. So you need the new money. The new money go to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin first, because the Himalayan goat farmers have all heard of those. And when those buckets fill up, then they pour down to the next in line, which is the Aptoses and the Solanas and the Pulse Chains and the Says and the Injectives, and those buckets fill up faster and go up higher. The prices go up higher because the buckets are smaller. So like the top buckets take a long time to fill, and then they tip down, and then the next buckets are smaller and they fill up faster, but you see more water go up and then they tip down. And that's kind of a bit like it is. Also, you mentioned because the markets like to be cruel and they don't like to be too predictable. And crypto can be divided as a 3-year bull market and a 1-year bear market. But in this cycle, it hasn't felt like that at all, because we've had an 8 months mid-cycle correction. People say 7 months, but it's been 8. It's 8. We're in November. We're nearly in November now, and we've not been going up since March. And so it's been almost a 12 months bear market duration. So psychologically, that's what's got us in this cycle. And as I say, giving us a $4,200 Ethereum nearly a year ago, 8 months ago, has tricked us into being a bit despondent and things. So that's where it's kind of fooled us into thinking that we're not about to explode. Fooled
Yep.
enough people in the market to think you're not about to get rich if you hodl Hex and Pulse Chain. Now's a fantastic time to buy Hex and Pulse Chain. Going to another thing you said there, Matt, we're nowhere near the top for Hex and Pulse Chain, and you'll know when we're at the top, when we all stop stressing about it, because in this cycle we've all got PTSD because none of us took as much profit as we wanted to. So in this cycle, my prophecy is that we're all going to have premature seller. We're going to all be premature sellers because everyone's obsessed with not round tripping this time. But the reality is that it's only when everyone relaxes about it in about 12 months time, that's when you should be selling. When people stop saying, "Oh, when's the top? When's the top?"
Yeah.
We were looking at Google Trends on my channel this morning, and the searches are just starting to go up for crypto and just starting to go up for Hex. And when we're at the top for Hex, the searches on Google Trends for Hex price and Pulse Chain will be much higher than they were in September 2021 when Hex topped. And we're nowhere near that.
Yep.
But equally, Google Trends is very cool because when we do get to the top, it goes down a lot. And it goes down a lot. The searches go down a lot while the prices are still quite high. So if you watch Google Trends, and it costs nothing, it's not expensive. It's not like Morales Money. Nothing wrong with Morales Money. Shout out to my friend Ivan. But it costs a lot of money to have tools like that, and maybe Patreons and things. All you need to do is go to Google Trends, look at Hex price, and you'll see, well, we're nowhere near the top here. And it's the same for Bitcoin and everything else. We were looking at it today in today's stream. But did I answer all your questions there, Matt?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think that one of the things I want to do, I learned some big lessons this last go around. I think you've been in crypto longer than I have. And what it really I learned that I wish somebody would have told me, and I'm going to just say it on every single stream that I do. Once the top is in, it's over. And here's why. Richard Hart bragged all the time, and I kind of made fun of him at times for saying, I called the top, I called the top, I called the top. The reason that that's so significant is because once the top is in, the big money, the whales are out. And you end up writing that down. And what ended up happening, I was a part of this. I was doing streaming and I was telling people, maybe it's going to come back up. One of the key indicators of understanding when the top is, besides just the date, right? The timing of the cycles, is the fact that when people are starting, when, let's say, Richard Hart's call for Bitcoin is 241.5, okay, 241,500. We're sitting at 72-ish right now. If you imagine this, when it reaches 100,000 or when it reaches 150,000, they're going to say it's going to 1 million. And as it continues to creep up towards 200,000, it's literally guaranteed going to be 1 million. You're going to hear that everywhere, right? That's the warning. When people are literally pressing and pressing and pressing you, and of course, what do green candles do? They attract people. Folks, this is like the quiet in a way before the storm. We're sitting before the election. A lot of these things are up in the air. We've got rumors of, hey, things went pretty well for Richard Hart. But if you look at crypto in general, the most important thing I learned that I want you to know is that when the top is in, it's over. It doesn't ever top out again. Now, you have little things that you can play around with, but if you're somebody who is buying and holding, which most people are doing, you have to make money while the sun shines. And folks, you're not the whale that's controlling the market. And that's why calling the top is so critical. But as we look at this and we just kind of look at the time, we don't know, right? Seven and I aren't like, oh, we know the future, but we know in general that we're likely going to get, I think, about 12 months out of this. And don't be surprised, because everybody's going to tell you, oh, no, this is just the beginning. And I've learned anything from Richard Hart, he says, once the top is in, it drops 85%. Period. End of sentence. And I don't think that changes just because you want it to. I certainly wanted it to. Checks My Pulse. Thank you for the 1999. You guys, thanks for what you do. And thank you, Seven, for coming in and doing this. Checks My Pulse is a big fan of yours and is supporting, and I appreciate that support, and I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah, thanks very much, man. Can I just make a little comment on that?
Yeah.
What you just said is 1,000,000% true, but there is a but. And because I've been in two tops of two prior cycles, and the but is that selling the top is impossible.
Right.
And it's impossible because it's like being
Good point.
invited to an after party
Good point.
with supermodels and then deciding you're going to go home early.
Yep.
And go home to a lonely hotel room on your own and have a cup of coffee. You're not going to want to do it. And it sounds like a high-class problem right now, but this is reality. You're on the super yacht with Westcott, and he's just opened the bottle of champagne. Nobody wants to go home.
Right.
And there'll be lots of people, lots of good-looking people around you telling you it's not time to go home. And
That's
this is why it's going to be different this time. And so what's the answer to that, Matt? The answer is exactly what you're saying about the importance of being in early. And that's why if you think that these two middle-aged guys getting excited about Hex and Pulse Chain might be onto something, even if you think just there's a possibility that Matt and Chris are right, as an insurance policy, why not buy some Hex and Pulse Chain? Why not buy some PLSX while it's still like a quarter of the SAC price or something? And because if you get in early, if you're uncomfortably invested now, you can afford to start taking profit. Like I say, everything you've just said is true. And it's important to have a go at making the predictions, but unless you write them down and things, you will be seduced into changing your mind about why, I mean, I hear Axis Alive say that we're going into March 2026 and he's much better looking and cleverer than me. And maybe he's right. I like the narrative, but what if he's not right?
Yeah.
And the answer is keep some in case he is right, but sell some in case he's not right.
Yeah.
And,
well, and I have a direct story of that. So every time, I just put my toe in the water, right? When I got into Hex, I saw it on a TV ad at 2 a.m. and I thought, how much can I put in this? So if I lose it, my wife doesn't leave me. And so I put some money into Hex. It was 2 days before big payday. And I was like, well, this sounds like a good time to do it. And of course it was dead after that for a long time. I started watching Hexo and I thought it was pretty entertaining, but I didn't think much of it. But then it started moving, and this was altcoin summer. and it started moving. And my little $600, I came home and I told my wife, I said, that $600 is now 1,200. And she's like, that's not real money. Every time at dinner, right? And I come back and I'd be like, it's 2,500. That was $600, $2,500. She's like, that's not real money. And so it seemed like every day it was like 30% or 40%. I'd take screenshots of my phone and send it to my buddies. And then it was like 7,500. And I said, that's $600 is $7,500. She's like, that's not real money. And it kept going. It was 10,000, it was 12,000, it was 14,000. And it hit about 14.9. And my wife kept on saying this. And I'm like, I'm doing this stuff. I'm in this stuff. I like, this is real. She's like, that's not real money. And I said, all right, fine. It was my daughter's birthday. And I said, you know what? I'm going to sell this and I'm going to buy her a car. Okay. That's my story. The
Lovely.
price of Hex went 2x more.
Oh, just
right?
2x. Oh, that's not bad.
2x more than I literally would have had 2x on top of that 15 or on top of that, yeah, 15,000. And that's the kind of stuff that's happening here. And of course, you hear stories about 10,000x and such. I'm so thankful that I had this opportunity that crypto had to prove itself to me, right? I had to learn that way. I know people that took $500,000 and put it into the adoption amplifier. I mean, there are people that on paper were sitting on $30 to $50 million in paper and Hex. And what's crazy about that is, folks, back then, Uniswap just had started. I mean, it was an early time, and getting out of crypto was difficult, as it still is a little bit. But we're coming into a mainstream era now, and we're going to see so many other opportunities. With crypto, literally with stable coins and such. We're going to see folks like this will be a watershed moment when Amazon or Walmart.com starts accepting a stable coin. You don't have to sit in those stables and you don't have to sit in centralized stuff, but there's going to be a moment in which you do not have to go. You can swap your Hex or whatever it is for that stable and get real goods and services. That's going to be the watershed moment for this, is that you could get anything on earth delivered to your door and you never had to go to fiat. That's coming. That will happen. Will it happen this cycle? I don't know. Likely we'll probably see pieces of that. But the point I'm making is you have to have a plan. And I think Checks My Pulse said it really well, right? He's like, and let me find his comment because he's been so supportive of this. DCA in, which is dollar cost average in, right? People think you just have to dump it in. There's some people that every week or every 2 weeks they put something in. And he's also saying dollar cost average out. Right? So you don't have to be trading in the market. Have a plan, stick to it. Don't get scammed, man. And that is so true. But I want to warn everybody, and I think you made the greatest point, is that it's seducing when it's at the top. And you're just like, oh, we just need to stay a little longer. And that's how you get caught in this stuff. So it's not a game, although it is a game. And I just I feel like we're doing what Richard Hart did for us. And that was help protect people from getting screwed.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of education in this community versus most. And I think there's a high level of education. There's importance of self-custody and or not your keys, not your cheese and all that stuff. I think so, for sure. And I'd like to just add, I'm in 45 different cryptos, which is quite unusual for a hexagon and a pulsicon. And I see all these other cryptos as my Jeet bags, and they will be the ones I sell before I sell any hex and pulse chain and PDI or anything else. I've never sold an RH coin in my life, and I'm not in any rush to sell any either. I've got a big bag of Solana and I've started selling that already. So the last coins that in fact, I'll probably need reminding to sell some pulse chain or something at some point in 12 months, but they'll be the last ones I sell. And why? Because I'm so confident. I've made loads in Super, I've made loads in Prime, I've made loads in WagMe games and Fetch and in this cycle, but I think that Hex and Pulse Chain are going to do better than all those. I've been in crypto for 10 years. I'm completely obsessive. You probably gathered. I think I've learned a few things about crypto along the way, and I'm so passionate about the Richard Hart ecosystem. And if you've locked upon Matt's channel and made sure to tap the bell, then you've done very, very well, because you've got in at such a good time. And I think I think you've made some great points, because all you can do really is get in early and then start DCAing, as Check My Pulse is saying, start DCAing out a little bit, but it's way too early to be taking any profit in Hex and Pulse Chain. And the way I see it is, I imagine myself meeting Richard at the bar and saying, "Hi, Richard." He's going, "How's it going in Hex and Pulse? With your investments in my coins?" And you say, "Yeah, I sold 20% last week. When we've made like a 10x or something." He'd look at you so disappointed. There's some big gains coming in Hex and Pulse Chain, and you've all gone through the hard times, and that's why it's definitely overlooked, and that's fantastic, because when everyone's talking about Hex and Pulse Chain, the opportunity is gone, and it's time to sell. Somi talks about this sort of thing a lot, doesn't he? And I mean,
Yeah.
So the opportunities now. Very, very excited. It's going to be very interesting. So Hex and Pulse Chain are going up since the court event. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. There's people are buying that rumor. I just have to show this because I just have to show this.
Well, we did say on Crypto 7 that this is going to be
incredible.
Sell the rumor, buy the news. We said this is going to be a sell the rumor, buy the news.
It's buy the rumor. Yeah.
Folks,
I just want to say thank you to everyone. My ticker's showing 2039. I just took this screenshot. Folks, it's special for a lot of reasons. And I think those of you who've been watching our channels for some time here, the thing that's incredible to me is we have a platform on X that is going crazy with people interested in content. We've got Elon Musk changing the X. He's going to start competing with YouTube. Okay. If you want to get into streaming, this is the time to do it. We need every voice. We need every person participating. Not everybody's a streamer. Not everybody does it. But at the end of the day, this is really a community thing. And if you think about it, I kind of joke, and I'm gonna throw this one at you, because you're as prolific as I am in streaming, and we're nowhere near Somi. But if you think about it, if you were to take every hour that you've streamed, right? How many videos have you done? How many live streams have you done, Seven?
Oh, I think I've done over 1,000, certainly.
Okay. I think I'm around 700.
Yeah.
If you think about every hour that you've spoken, you could actually put a number on that, of how much money that speaking has done. Folks, when you speak, you create the future. And if you speak harsh things and you are negative, you will reap that. This is an opportunity within this cycle to breathe life into people. And I'm telling you, there's no better place to do that, in a place that actually promotes their freedom to choose, their freedom to speak, their freedom to act, to move, to transact. Folks, this is a cause beyond just one Lambo and money. And it is a real opportunity. And this is shifted. It not only shifted in the courtroom, it's shifting politically. It's shifting in so many ways. And so I just want to, I'm kind of putting a stake in the ground with you here, Seven, and saying, let's go forward here in 2025, and let's be positive, and let's come together to build an alternative financial system for the world. And thank you, Richard Hart. With this many people, there's a possibility he might tune in. And I just want to say thank you to Richard Hart for seeing this future and advocating for us. Because with all the hate that's come his way, I could easily see him going, this is too much work. And he hasn't.
Do you know what? I'm sure he'll see the engagement. I'm sure people will talk about the engagement that you've achieved. And you're not the only Hex and Pulse Chain streaming right now. And you've still achieved these numbers. I can't believe these numbers. And when you asked me to come on, I was terrified, because I thought, what happens when the English guy comes on? They might all go,
No.
So I'm relieved they haven't all gone, but maybe you'd have got even more without me. I don't know. But I think it's absolutely amazing. And just one thing, so these are so powerful things. I mean, numbers are everything, whether it's the fact that there wasn't enough seating room for all the hexagons and pulsicons. Yeah. And, it might sound like a silly thing, but it's like, when your daughter's boyfriend turns up well-dressed and shakes your hand, the fact that the judge is looking at, okay, so this is a bit different. I mean, how many court hearings might that have judge done in that court hearing? And I bet she's never had 60 well-mannered hexagons in suits before. And so, and even demographic ladies there as well. I think that goes down. That's so impressive. And it's that immediate impression as well. And
it definitely has an impact. Definitely.
And then look at this, we've got all this international support for you, in this supposed thing that was targeting Americans.
Right. Well, dude, we're going to wrap it up here. 2,074 people here. Crypto 7, thank you for staying up late in the UK to come make it. But here's the thing, folks, we're all in this together, and that's the beauty of it. We're all in this together, and we're here to try to help guide you through this process, to help you avoid pitfalls. But that's what Richard he's done for us and continues to do. You know what I'm looking forward to most, 7, is the moment that Richard streams again, because it's going to be coming. Can you imagine that's going to break the internet?
And I mean, no disrespect to you, buddy, but how many views is he going to get then? I mean, it's just crazy.
It's so awesome.
But thank you so much again. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for your support, because you know, without everyone watching, it's just two dudes talking on the
right. Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. Awesome, 7. Well, look forward to your streams probably tomorrow, I would assume. But get some rest, and thank you for joining.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you on behalf of everyone, Matt. Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone that went. Thank you in particular, everyone that went to the court hearing, went to the court, that traveled.
Yes, absolutely.
Huge thanks to those people.
Put a 7 in the chat for Crypto 7 as he goes. Take care, everybody. All right, we'll see you, Crypto 7. Thanks, man.
Cheers, dude. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right, folks, I'm going to give you the recap to wrap things up. 2,059 people here on 3 platforms. Thank you so much. It's an encouragement to me, but it's a sign of the times. This is the ecosystem of freedom and sovereignty. Richard Hart is building the alternative financial system, and we get to be a part of it. We're a front row seat at this. Folks, this is more than just making money. This is changing, separating political power from financial power. But here's what I want to do. I want to give you a recap. You can always watch it again, but I'm going to give you the final recap. Today was the oral arguments of Richard Hart and his lawyers. He was not there, okay? His 11 lawyers against the SEC. The SEC had a complaint. That complaint obviously was this lawsuit. It was obviously responded to written, and this was the first of oral arguments. This happened today at 2 p.m. Eastern at the Eastern District of New York in Brooklyn. There were 75, 80 hexagons there. They had to have an overflow room. The folks that sat in there, Danny the singer and Axis Alive, came on the stream. You can go back and listen to it. But brilliantly, they characterized what happened there. This is the rumor, right? They shared with us that from the perspective that they had, that the judge herself was a bit put out by the lack of preparation and the poorly designed arguments that were outlined in the complaint from the SEC. Danny pointed out the fact that the SEC wasn't up to the mic. They were not as sharp. And then you had this amazingly skilled and prepared group of lawyers for Richard Hart. He brought up 4 points that I want to bring to you. Number 1 is jurisdiction. The number 1 issue here was this global platform that Richard Hart was speaking to, and that there are people from all over the place that were a part of this. It wasn't, just the United States, and certainly not just New York. And so to say that this jurisdiction, that it is in New York, is an issue. And so that was the number 1 issue that they say brought up that had teeth to it. Number 2, they're accusing Richard Hart of fraud, right? That he's literally selling a security, or that he used the money, and that there were expectations of that. It sounds like the attorneys for Richard Hart made it very clear, not only from statements of Richard Hart on streams, but also his affidavit, that he made it very clear that when you send coins to this sacrifice address, they are gone. There is no expectation of the work of others. There is nothing you're getting in return. This is a sacrifice for freedom of speech and freedom of movement. And that sounded like that went over really well. Number 3 was the chronology of events that were outlined in this petition, or in this in their argument, the SEC's case against Richard Hart. Their chronology was all wrong, and they shot holes in that. That's huge. And number 4, this idea that the SEC was saying that this was some sort of public offering, that this was an offering of investment. And what Axie said was that this wallet that was the sacrifice wallet, people just kept continuing to give to it. And it brought up this point that really you can't restrict what people do with their money. They do all kinds of stupid things with their money, right? People buy worthless things. People buy things that are bad for their health. You can't restrict people's ability to transact with their own money. And because there wasn't an investment contract, and because there was this kind of perpetual wallet that they literally had to say, stop giving to, stop doing this, brought up an interesting point. But I think overarching was the sentiment. And the sentiment was the judge was a bit annoyed with the preparation of the SEC, which is like, surprise, surprise. But on the flip side is that the attorneys were in a whole different class for Richard Hart. And we knew that, but this is the first time we've had people in the inside hearing this stuff out. So what's incredible is if you take a look at the chart since this, have a pretty interesting pump. What I think it says, though, is this case was made very strongly and they didn't have a very good rebuttal. We won't see a decision made from this. Let's say it's thrown out because of jurisdiction. But what's interesting to me is this goes over the new year, is we're going to see an election here in a week. And whether or not you think, well, it shouldn't affect it in any way, the fact of the matter is that the political winds are shifting. And we know what that future is of, let's say, a Trump victory and what it means for crypto and where the sentiment will go from this regulatory organization that's using it and it's being weaponized against, crypto players. But I think more importantly, long term, if this does go the distance, this has the opportunity to set the precedent that writing to the blockchain by you and me is considered free speech. And the case, they didn't go into a lot of detail on this, but I think this is the thing that I hope for Richard Hart. He wants the glory. Well, guess how he's going to get the glory? He's going to get the glory by setting the precedent for every single person in crypto that when you author something, when you take your MetaMask wallet or whatever wallet that you've got, and you decide you're going to do something, that is your personal decision. And then you write to a public ledger by doing math and you pay the gas fee and no one else is there. There's no counterparty. That you writing to that public ledger is speech. It's that case with computer code, with whatever you write, whatever medium it's in. At the end of the day, that's your decision making and that's your speech. If that precedent gets set, Richard Hart's got the glory because he literally not only saved you and me in this pulse chain community, but literally set the precedent in the world for what writing to the blockchain is. Folks, this is the most exciting time in human history. It's the first time that financial power and political power have been separated. That's a quote from Raoul Pal. Folks, the first time in human history that financial power and political power have been separated. That means, unlike the past, when you won a war, you killed the people, you took their gold, and you rewrote the rules in your favor, is over. We're separating from the war machine, and people in community with trust like us, who are high-fiving each other at events and winning together, are determining where our value is, because value comes through agreement. That's why Richard says our made-up internet money is better than the government's made-up internet money. Folks, value is determined by parties, and there is nothing aside from human labor. Goods and services are everything. This is where we decide to store our value. And folks, this is the most exciting time. We're redefining the very nature of money and the people. This is absolutely a historic time in human history. And I will say this, folks, you are exactly at the right time. If you're somebody who's brand new to crypto and you're just hearing about this stuff, you're not somebody that's been following it for years, I envy you because of what time it is. Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse today. Thanks for making my day. We had 1,660 people last time. Right now, we have 2,098. Thank you to Crypto 7 for coming out. I encourage you. If you're in the States, he's going to be early because he does his things in the morning over there in the UK. Support, folks. Anyone you see that's talking about this Pulse Chain and Hex and PulseX ecosystem and Richard Hart stuff, I encourage you to support. You do make a difference because this is not owned by a centralized entity. There's no CEO. There's no headquarters. It's you and me agreeing together because, in my opinion, it's not the cryptocurrency. The currency is trust in community. Folks, thanks for joining today. Take care of yourself. And don't mess with Texas. Take care, everybody.